So the last few uh, Mondays, the topic has been stillness or quietness, um, working with that quality of our experience, that aspect of our experience, and that is not moving, that is just always present. We've been going from the samatha meditation practice more recently to that style of meditation where the mind is just open. So we've been working with all of that. So I hope you've been able to work with that. I hope you've been able to take some of the teachings from these last few classes and to work with it in your daily life. Last class, I was doing that thing with, you know, openness and then the T, the object, and then the object goes and the openness is still there. So that's what we are working with. That's what we're contemplating. That's what we're developing in terms of our practice these days. It's a different sort of feeling than the concentration work. And of course, the concentration work is the foundational work. But once we have the degree of expertise that we all do in the concentration, then we are able to just open up and not get pulled away by objects as frequently. So there's a quality in this type of meditation of more of a receptiveness. There's less a sense of doing. There's less a sense of trying to change. There's less a sense of trying to push away. And there's more a sense of open awareness. There's more this sense of receptivity to the present moment. And this is where the meditation needs to move. This is what it is we need to develop if we want to be able to develop a practice that makes sense in daily life, for sure. Because we can't control the activity. We can't control all of these things that are happening. So we learn to be, we learn to find that equanimous, quiet state within. And part of that is just receptivity, is allowing things to be. Certain things that are really easy to allow to be. Oh, you brought me a piece of apple pie. Okay, well, I guess I'll just accept this. And there's other things that aren't so easy to accept. And this is where the practice lies. This is where the practice lies. As we move into this open awareness, as we learn to begin to connect with and rest in, then there is a real change in the quality of our consciousness, and there's a real change in the quality of our life. Because we don't need to be doing battles with everything that comes up. We learn to allow things to be. We learn to step back from our habitual reactivity and just be open. Just rest in the awareness of what's taking place. And of course, we're not being stupid about it. If there's a car coming towards you, you don't step off the curb, right? We're still moving through the day with um, intelligence, but we're really beginning to choose where we put our energy. And we're really beginning to choose those places. We're really beginning to see those places in our life where we waste a lot of energy worrying about, trying to change someone or something. We become a lot more discriminating. And as we develop this ability to be open and rest with, then the choices become a lot more clear about what's worthwhile and what's not. What supports the wholesome states of mind? What supports an expansive state of mind? What supports kindness and caring? What supports compassion? Now, when we're lost in reactivity, it's really hard to be clear on anything at all. It's just one reaction after the other. So we've developed this calm, this stability, and now we are opening up to this sense of open awareness. And as we open up to that, we begin to notice a silence. I've used this word a few times in the last month of teachings. Are you getting a sense of it? The underlying silence, the underlying quietness, the underlying aspect of consciousness that is not thought, that is not movement. I said the term a few weeks ago, silence that watches itself. You could also say it's silence that sees itself. All of these practices that we do, they bring us to the door. They bring us to a door. They bring us to a place where we start to connect with that silence, with the mind that's not moving, with the mind that's not trying to figure out. We're starting to get an intimation of something that lies beyond all of that. And we rest in that. We rest in that. And we come back to it again and again and again. And we begin to see it at different times. We begin to see it in our formal meditation, but we also begin to see it in activity as well. It's not an object in a normal sense, but there's a presence that's there. And we open to that. So that open receptivity, it starts with just being open to whatever comes up in consciousness, whatever comes up in the mind. But as that openness expands, then there's something else that starts to present itself. And it's always here. It's in every moment of experience. But really, it is the silence that sees itself, that invites itself in. And in that place, in that moment, there's no you trying to figure anything out. There's no you that's trying to control everything. There's no you that you can bring along. Not the you that we know, not the self that we know. All of that doing, all of that figuring, all of that thinking serves a purpose. All these practices serve a purpose, but all they do is bring us to the door, to this place. And then we begin to recognize it. But the moment you think about it, you're not recognizing it. So that's why we have the training of the samatha. That's why we have the graduated training of going from watching the breath, watching sensations, watching the body, to getting into that state of concentration that we call access concentration sometimes, where there's this a sense of being able to be equanimous, stable, and open. And in that state, we start to recognize the silence, that which is not activity. And in that state, that becomes our teacher. That silence, that quietness begins to inform us in different ways. It's like a grace that descends or opens up. Have you noticed sometimes where you are trying to make a decision about something and you go either one way or the other, and sometimes you make the decision and everything just works out. I can think, oh, if I do that, well, I'm not really sure how it's going to work out, but and then sometimes you just take a leap of faith and you decide to do something, and then everything seems to support you. And then there's other times where you decide to do something and all you get are brick walls. And quite often, when we have that experience of making a decision and then everything opens up, then that is grace. You could, in the context of this discussion, you could say that that is grace opening up. We are in a good place. We're moving in the right direction. We open up and things unfold. And sometimes I think when we make the wrong decision, then the obstacles are there to try to make us pay more attention to what we're doing. So there's in that openness, in that leap of faith, when you're not sure, but you think it's the right thing to do, in that openness, there's something that's there. There's something that's there. And we can be tight, we can hold on, we could try to figure it out, and it doesn't take us anywhere. But in that state of openness, there's something else that begins, that we begin to notice more. And that is the presence. That is the wakefulness. That is the silence. And we make a decision. We step out the door. We go to the left hand side of the road instead of the right hand side of the road. And we start to walk. And we see what presents itself. But if we are in that state of openness, if we're in that state of openness, which means we don't have a fixed idea, which means within that state of openness, there's a stillness there, there's a quietness there, because it's waiting to receive. There's a receptiveness that's there. And we're simply receptive. And often when we're in that state, then the decisions we make, the directions we go in, are more aligned with our heart's desire. When we're in this kind of place, it's really hard to be aligned with our heart's desire. But that receptiveness, that openness, that quietness, that leads us. That can be our companion. So wherever we find ourselves during the day, wherever we find ourselves at this point or that point in your life, being able to connect with that openness is really important. It really changes how you move through your life. So we learn to be quiet. We learn to open up to the quietness. We don't manufacture it. We're open to it. We're receptive. That's how we find it. Moving, developing that state of openness and not grabbing onto anything that's not that openness. Open, open, expansive, and anything that's not that, we simply let it go its way and we come back to that openness. And in that place, when we've let go of everything that's not that openness, that's where the silence is. And you could say that the silence is a doorway into something else. So continue to work with that. I hope that you are working with that because we've been kind of working with these ideas in the last month or so. Another way of expressing it is we're going from the form to the formless meditations. And of course, all of this talk um, is based on the idea that you know that we have the ability to work with samatha, that we have the ability to develop some sort of calm so that we can be in that open state and there's enough mindfulness and presence so we're not being pulled away. But when you develop the capacity to work with that open state, when you develop the capacity to be able to connect with the silence, then what happens is in your daily life, things don't push you around nearly as much because you're constantly aware of that aspect of consciousness that is open, that is non-clinging, that is quiet. So we develop the concentration, then we open it up. We develop the concentration, then we open it up. We develop the concentration, and then we open it up. And when you are in the middle of your day, not on the cushion, then you work with the awareness. When you're on your cushion, you work with the concentration for a period of time, and then you open up to the awareness.